All right. Hello, everyone. We have our 2 o'clock class today. We have our Go Live dance classes every 2 and 7 o'clock. This is going to be our second of the more advanced technique that we're going to be doing. And so, really excited for this. We're going to do some smooth today, seeing that we did some rhythm last week. Like I say in the post, we're happy to be able to spend our time with you during this and to be able to volunteer and make sure that you all have a chance to keep dancing. So I preemptively had my spray bottle for Mickey. Hi Mom, Vicky, happy belated birthday. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started because we do save and post these. And that way anyone can catch up later for what it is that they want to do. Okay, so, can you see my feet? Yes, okay, we can see the feet. It's always the important thing. It's really hard to see from here. Okay, so, I want to go just through some waltz actions and things that we can do at home. Okay, the first of which, if you are a competitive student, or you just want to make sure that you're doing things correctly. Footwork is always something that is really important when you're looking out onto the floor. Because when you're watching someone, especially if you're competing, when you're doing something, and you can just, it's one of those things that's very clear to see. And I even asked Bob Long, and he said, even for professionals, when I see someone who just aren't doing the proper footwork, no matter how good they look, I'm not going to mark them as well. And so I think it's very important that we kind of understand when we're supposed to be using either our heels, right, or the balls of the feet. And again, I'm in socks because it's carpet. If you're on hardwood floor, better for you. But some of you are on carpet, and I understand. So we're gonna go along with this. So in our waltz, right, and again, we probably have more followers today. Whenever we start our waltz, just in our footwork, and things that we're doing with that, is that we have like I said, we have heels and toes. So as we're going backwards, right, and that's going to be on the 1, right, we start the box on 1. 1, when I say heel, right, that's the action of a toe release. We're pulling up the toe. So it's still going to hit the heel of the foot, but we're not going to go backwards and try to hit the heel of the foot. I'm just checking in, make sure everyone, okay, great. So as we go backwards, right, that would be the 1. That would start the heel action in our waltz, okay? Now, we're going to talk more about different layers of why this is and what we need to do from that, right? So as we go backwards, we pull up the toe. That's called a toe release. It is the equivalent of doing a heel on 1, okay? So then as we take our side step, that is going to be ball of the foot, right? So ball of the foot, and then we've risen, right? We have our rise. And then we collect the feet, right, and that's going to be the 3, right, and so then we transfer weight over the 3, and then we lower, okay, so we have heel going forward, 1, right, side, ball of the foot, that's our 2, we close the feet, 3, and then we lower, okay. I just want to try to angle this down a little bit more so that you can see my feet. I know, super fun. Okay, so again, heel toe toe, or heel ball ball the foot, right? So again, starting from the lady's perspective, we go backwards, right? And we have our toe release, okay? Then we have ball the foot, we start to rise, ball the foot, then we lower, okay? Same thing going forwards. We have heel, right? Ball the foot, lower, okay? So you just want to make sure that no matter what you're doing in waltz, even if you're doing like a promenade, right? It'd still be like a heel going forward. And again, the reason I'm going through the footwork, it's not as advanced, right, because this is a more advanced technique. It is so very important, right? So last week, right, last Wednesday, I talked about the dance energy and things that we can do in our dancing, and we applied it to some rhythm, but we talked about the stretching of the spine, very important again for smooth. We talked about engaging the frame, right? Again, very important for smooth, engaging the core. Right? So these are all things that you still want to think about when you're dancing smooth, okay? So I want to talk about a little bit about poise, right, which we didn't really talk about in rhythm, but it's going to be very important in smooth, okay? Whatever direction we're going in our smooth, right? And we're just, for waltz right now, we're just gonna think about our box. Or this is more for swinging dances though. So posture is the alignment of the spine with the body, right? Poise is where the spine is aligned over the feet, right? So in rhythm dancing, we're more forward poised, right? So we're gonna be in this kind of a position, right? Smooth, we actually sometimes change our poise, but a lot of times we're backward poised, okay? So when we're going forward, we're gonna be backward poised, okay? So if I'm gonna go forward, I wanna be backwards. The reason being is if I wanna work through the entirety of my foot so that I can push off the foot to take a bigger step, right? Same thing if I were to go backwards. I'm gonna be forward. Now, it's not gonna be here, right? The weight of my hip and my rib is gonna be even over the front of the foot. We don't wanna be here, you're in your partner's space, don't do that. But I wanna be here over the front of my foot, right? So again, I can work through the whole foot to send myself backwards. There's a cat scratch box there. Yeah, I found it, right? So that again, we can push off the foot. If I wanna go to the left, right, I'm gonna be right. And then if I wanna go to the right, I'm gonna be left, which is how we create a lot of those really nice shapes, okay? Now, poise also helps affect our footwork, okay? If we're walking every day, right, which you should go walk, not groups of people, but sometimes when people walk and they're hunched forward, right, that causes a shuffling action. And you notice a lot of times people who do that, we're more prone to trip over things because their feet are shuffling and you're gonna kick something. Where if you're standing upright and you're walking, you're more prone to take those heel leads, okay? So in rumba and rhythm, right, we're forward poised because our feet always stay on the floor, and that really helps with that, okay? So in smooth, we do have some transfer of forward and back poise. So on our one, if I'm going forward and backward poise, right? So if I'm gonna do my box, and this is the leaders going forward, by the way, if I start here, I'm gonna lower, right? And this is pretty much the starting position of any dance that we do in our smooth, right? So we're lowered, okay? Now, I'm gonna be backward poised, make sure I stay in frame. I'm gonna be backward poised so that I can roll through. Everything's kind of a big circle, right? So we're back to push forward, okay? And that's gonna be what helps our swing, okay? So we have a swinging action in waltz, right? So I'm back to push forward, and that creates the swing, right? Now, I know you don't have much room, I don't have much room, but if we were to continue that swing, what would happen is then we would have leg swing, and the leg swing would place my foot this way, and then I would rotate, right, to create that swinging action towards the side, okay, or sway, right? So, I know I'm going through a lot of things, but this is advanced technique. Everyone's at a different level. Pick up what you can, okay? So poise, backward poise, right? Now notice what happens here, right? I'm just doing a box, okay? We're backward poise. I'm pushing off the foot, relatively, because I'm on carpet, right? My hips start to swing forward. I place the foot. I begin to rotate. And now what happens as I rotate, I'm going to end up forward poised, right? The reason being is because now I'm going to move backwards, okay? So we want to make sure, right, that again, whatever direction, if I'm going to swing, right, we're talking about poise, I'm backwards to go forward, I'm left to go right, yeah, I close my feet, and then I'm forward so that I can then move backwards. Again, I don't want to lean forward. I'm just going to stay over that foot. Now, when we go backwards, the goal of going backwards is to get out of the way. Okay? So, sometimes it took me a while to understand this. We're not swinging back. Okay? So we don't want this action of going backwards and being like, woohoo! Not really the goal here. Okay? So when we're forward and we want to go backwards, our goal is just to move, right? And a good goal to do whenever you're dancing is to think about your sternum, right? And your hip, okay? Moving those 2 points at the same time, right? So that your body stays in line. So when we go backwards, we want to move these 2 points, get out of the way, right? And then what we're going to do is match the person swing who's going forward, because they're the driving force, okay? So whoever's going forward is creating the drive, right? And so whoever's going forward, and sometimes when this is for the followers, it's not as comfortable because you're going through your partner, but that's good. We still need you to create the drive, create the momentum, right? So when you're going forward, you're creating the drive, right? We're backward poise, and so that we have this potential energy, and then we turn it into kinetic energy by pushing off the foot, right? So we're backwards, and we're really wound up, and we're down so that we can push, right? And get to this point, right, to where I've taken a bigger step, okay? Again, from there, I'm trying to stay in frame, right? We let the hip swing forward, okay? Now, I'm still guilty of letting my hip only swing to the side, okay? And I understand that, right? We want to make sure that the hip swing comes from the forward drive because that's the direction of the momentum that we're creating, right? So, again, one of the things that's really hard is working on swing and sway. We want to make sure that we're doing this correctly. So, as I drive, right, my swing is going this way, and then as I rotate, it finishes to the side, okay? Now, again, going backwards, you have your get out of the way, right? And then you're gonna match the swing of the partner, okay? So, poise, we talked about swinging, right? Only swinging on the forward though, not on the back half, okay? I'll try to check in periodically and see if anyone has any questions. But if not, then put like, if you do have a question, put like emoji or something so that I can actually catch my attention because I can't really see. It's teeny tiny on the phone, okay? So, let's talk about practicing for a second, okay? And I did this in the rhythm, and I want to make sure that we do this in the smooth as well. Even if you're just practicing your rise and fall, okay? We have our down in our starting position. I want to make sure that we're using periods, right? The concept of a period, of a hard stop, whenever we're practicing something. So if we're doing a box, again from the lady's perspective, and we're down in this position, okay? I want to make sure that, okay, I'm starting down. As I take my step, I've stayed down, right? So 1, okay? So that's the position I want to be in. 2, right? I want to make sure that I end up getting over the foot, and then I go through all of 2, and then transfer my weight 3, and then lower all the way, right? And so then we start using the ands. Ands is a placeholder in between the beats. So as we're lowered, right? 1, I can't take a really big step or I'm going to run into the chandelier. 1, right? 2, and 3, and, right? 1 is the driving force. We're going to use most of the and just to drive, okay? So, when you get comfortable with that and you understand what's happening, the harder part is breaking it down into 16th notes, which I know a lot of people don't like, but is what we got to do to practice control, okay? The reason we need to break it down is because smooth dancing, well, anything, but I think smooth dancing, because of all the momentum, all the power, it's very hard to control. And so when you're dancing and we tell you to move more, we feel out of control and we're like, I don't like this, I feel out of control, I don't want to take bigger steps, I feel like I'm going to fall. That's where, if you practice slowly, right, and you practice working through all the different positions, what you're going to start to do is figure out what's going on in your body to make you off balance or to see what's happening that you're not in the right position. So when we're dancing, right, and we're going to talk a little bit about shaping in smooth as well because there's some things that I've seen and I just want to go through, okay? So when we're practicing, like I said, we're going to get to 16th notes, right? And so when we dance, we kind of get this 1, and if I'm actually, we go through smooth walks, then I'm going to take my time. This is my driving step. 1, I'm going through 1 and I work onto the foot, right? We call that a smooth walk, right? Smooth walk is that concept of pushing off of the back foot to get to 2 straight legs, right? And there's the chandelier, and then collecting at the same level, okay? So again, smooth walk going forward, this is really good to practice. You're back, heel going forward, get to 2 straight legs, and then collect, right? Same thing going backwards, right? I push off of the foot, really hard on carpet, right? And then what you're gonna do, if I can, because again I'm on carpet, is squeeze to collect the feet, right? So those are our smooth walks, right? That's the idea that we want there, is that push to get here, but then the control to collect the feet. And you're gonna start to realize I'm off balance. And if you're off balance, right, then you have to realize, is my body centered between my feet? Or am I using both of my feet adequately enough to keep my balance, right? One of the things that's very hard to explain is foot pressure into the floor, which is so very important when you're dancing, because you can use that as like a kickstand, like on a bike, and it helps you balance a bit. But a lot of times we need that because our body isn't centered, right, over which foot we're on, okay? So when we're driving, or if we're doing like turns or something, we're getting off balance, what happens is that our body isn't centered over a foot, right? So when I'm dancing smooth, hey Bubby, come here. It's okay, you can be there for now. When I'm dancing smooth, yes, we have one side of the body not centered over the middle of the feet, because then you can't move, right? So even if I'm doing a box, right, and I have 1, I want to make sure my right side's over my right foot, 2, left side over left foot, 3, I get my right side back over my right foot. I can't be split weight, okay? Or else I'm gonna get off balance as I lower, and I'm not gonna be able to move again, okay? Yeah. He's good, he's better today. I know. Shasta said last time we're here for the dog. Did she just tune in? Yeah. So, again, right, we wanna make sure that we're balanced. Okay, and practicing slowly. Yeah, okay. He agrees, stay balanced, right? So we want to make sure that we work through the feet, right? And that becomes our 1, E, and up, okay? So that's our driving step. And then we go 2, E, and because again, we want to control and see where we're getting off balance. 3, we change weight, E, and right? And then we have the same thing going backwards. 1, E, and not too much happening there. 2, E, and 3, E, and Now, if you're like me, right, and you don't have much room, really, I moved a table out of the way. It's a mess right now, but I got it so that we can do this. What we want to do is make sure that you're practicing each thing individually, okay? So if you want to practice your swinging action, right, 1, work on the swing forward and finishing the rotation to the side, right? Or you go back, yeah, and then think about having the partner swing to the side, okay? So you can work on that, or you can work on your rise and fall, right? Nice and slow, yeah? Or you can work on, like we said before, posture, or you can work on poise in the direction that you want to be, okay? Now, before I go on to Foxtrot, I did want to go through shaping, and I want to talk about shaping and some of the shapes that we see. Whenever we're doing something in smooth, I always want to think about one side of the body reaching up, okay? So, as we're dancing, I either want my left side reaching up or my right side reaching up. Sometimes we get passionate in the moment, and what happens is we get into a position and we dip down, and we really don't want to dip down. Now, sometimes in open choreography, we'll kind of have these moments where we're collapsing and expanding, but whenever you're doing something, I always want you to think of either one side coming up, right, or it's the other side. So when people are doing shapes, right, even if I'm doing like a rotation from one side to the other, I have my right side lifted, and then my left side lifted. We always want something, we want to feel more up, never down. Because even as professionals, when we get coachings, a lot of times what we hear is don't dip your side, stand up nice and tall, and what's the footwork supposed to be on that? So I'm just trying to go through all the things that we hear all the time as well. Okay, so that's what I have on waltz. Let's talk about Foxtrot. I just kind of want to go through the swinging dances mostly. Right, so Foxtrot, right, what differentiates Foxtrot from waltz besides the timing, right, is the amount of rise and fall, okay? And this is something that I think a lot of people have discrepancies on. Even the timing, people have discrepancies on is it foot strike on one, or is it like weight transfer and then roll through? It's just a whole thing, right? For me though, right, and this is just referring to a slow, quick action, right? And just like waltz, the slow is going to be your one, so that's going to be your heel, and the quicks are your ball flat, right? Just like we did in waltz. But what we don't want to do in Foxtrot, unlike waltz, is get to 2 straight legs when you're on the balls of the feet, right? So if I'm dancing just a Foxtrot basic, just a feather step, right? And I go slow, right? I want to get through my 2 straight legs as I do my first step, which is the same as waltz, right? But the timing is different because we have more time to work through lead, okay? So as I go through slowly, right, then if I were to continue moving forward, right, into my quick, what's going to happen is I'm going to get here, but then as I get to the ball of the foot, I'm going to compress my knees so that I don't rise up, because we don't want that in our Foxtrot. We want it to stay fluid, right? Because if I dance like slow, quick, then that's waltz, right? We're dancing waltz at that point, so we don't want that. So the hard thing is trying to think about staying at one particular level. And you can even do this with a box, right? So if I'm here, right, and I'm lowered, and I take my step slow, right, as I go to the side, quick, I just want to make sure that I don't actually rise, but I can close my feet quick, and then I can lower my heels, right? Or you can do this as an open box, and you can do your forward slow, right? Again, stepping here quick, right? You can actually reach a little bit further, and then letting the foot pass through. But again, not rising up, right? But staying here. Okay, so we want to make sure that we differentiate, right, the Foxtrot, which doesn't have as much rise and fall, right, because of that action on the quick, where we keep our knee bent and then brush through, right, and so we're not rising as much, which is much harder, right? So, because Foxtrot has more linear actions, right? Waltz has a lot more side stopping actions, which is also where we get more of the ups and downs, because together is going to be the highest point that we can have. We have a little bit of a different swing and swaying action in Foxtrot, because we have one side versus the other side, right? Waltz, we kind of did everything together for the swing, where in Foxtrot, we have what we call a monkey bar swing, right? If you were to swing on the monkey bars, this is the action that happens as we dance it. Now, I'm not going to be able to do my feet as well. Again, I'm on carpet. But when we're dancing Foxtrot, if we just keep this idea of our slow, quick, if we're just to walk forward, right, then what we would have is our slow, which would begin, right, to go into the direction of our swing, which is the second step, just like in waltz, it goes towards the second step, right, which is the first quick in Foxtrot. Slow, quick, right? I'm going to reach my side quick, yeah, and then as I go through, I'm going to be in this CB&P, right, because I've landed in contra body position from a moving position, and then I'm going to come back to a neutral position, okay? Now, what's tricky about this when we're dancing with a partner is we feel this rotation, and what we want to do is then change the direction of our feet, and we really don't want to do that, okay? So what we can do, again, is just make sure our slow, or our first step, quick, right, quick, and we come back to a neutral, okay? And so then I'll turn around, and I can do it on the other side, slow, quick, I get my left side up, quick, neutral. Okay, now if you have more room to practice a longer stride, that's great, but a lot of what we're trying to do is just give you small exercises and things that you can practice, at home, or just to understand some different concepts that we may not have really understood before. Okay, so recap of Foxtrot, besides the timing of slow, quick, quick, right? We want to make sure that we're not changing height as much, right? And so we get to this point where the only time our legs are straight are between movements, right? So we have our slow, right? And then as I go through, quick, and then I can compress my knees, as you can't see, right? So that I can move back out and be on 2 straight legs again, okay? Whew, just checking in. How's it going? All right, great. So, all right, so and then the swing, right? So then the body changes because it's linear, right? So because we don't have those side steps to finish in this direction where we close the feet, Foxtrot is more of this monkey bar swing, okay? And that's what we want to be aware of in that. Now, Tango, right? I'm going to try to get through the 4 different smooth dances. Tango doesn't have swing. Tango is not a swinging dance, okay? So, what we do in Tango, and a thing that you can practice, I actually think Tango is probably the easiest to practice, is to, one, right, again, I'm going to go over characteristics of Tango as well, is that we always stay seated, right? So we always want to be backward poised and seated as we dance Tango, okay? Because every step in Tango is a heel lead or a toe release. Now, that's relative to going forward and back. You're not going to be like heel to the side, kind of weird, okay? So when you're dancing Tango, right, we want to make sure that any forward step is going to be a heel, right? And you just get over the foot as quickly as you can, or if you're going backwards, you do a toe release, okay? So we want to make sure that we stay backward poised and that we can do our heel, heel, and then you can try to do a basic, and I'll get out of the camera, right? So if I'm here, you're going backwards, toe release, toe release, toe release, side, drag. Now, if you're like, I need to practice Tango, what I would recommend is trying to get onto your foot as quickly as possible, okay? So as you're dancing, try as quickly as possible to get your weight change, okay? Now with that, I was talking earlier about when we're moving, depending on what you're doing, trying not to move these 2 positions at opposite times. This is especially important in Tango because we don't have swing, right? Swing allows my hip to come out from underneath my body, but in Tango we don't have that. So a lot of times people get off balance, and I notice this on Tango, on their Tango close, where they go back, side, and then they drag their foot, but then their hip starts to go as well. And we want to be careful with that, that when we do that back side, that we don't actually let anything happen. The foot action is a whole separate action by itself, okay? So, practicing Tango, stay down, stay back, move everything as one piece as quickly as you can to get centered over the foot, okay? Now, again, just checking in. Yeah, hey people. Okay, so, Viennese Waltz, right? I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. I know, you're like, how do we practice Viennese Waltz at home? I don't know, I'm gonna make it up. So, again, these are advanced concepts that you can apply to your dancing. Viennese Waltz is a swinging dance. It is waltz, but it does not have as much rise and fall because it is faster and it rotates more. Okay? So, when we're dancing Viennese Waltz, one of the things that I like to think about more is kind of what we do in Tango, and we stay down the whole time. That's going to allow you to be quicker. Now, there's still some foot rise, but if we go too much, you're going to trip over yourself or trip over your partner. So, as we're dancing, right, we have our Viennese Waltz. We start with our Viennese cross, right? To do the Viennese cross, right, we have our forward step, right, which is a heel, okay? We have a side step, which is the ball of the foot, right? Now, here's where it's interesting. When we cross the feet, this is the crossing action, it's a flat action, and we have to make sure that because we're crossing, our left foot gets in front of our right foot, that we get our body weight over the left foot so that you can drive back and get out of the way. Okay? Now, again, we're down. We have our forward step. I'll try not to turn my feet out too much. We have our forward, side and slightly forward step. No, side and slightly back, sorry. It's warm in here. Right, side and slightly back. Now the reason it's side and slightly back is so that the foot can cross without having it to be too much rotation with the partner. Okay, so again, down, forward, side and slightly back, get over the left foot when we cross. Okay, now as we're going backwards, hi Norma. As we're going backwards, right, like I said before, when you're going backwards, the goal is to get out of the way. So when we're getting out of the way, now this is for any turn in any swinging dance, really. Whoever's going backwards, you're getting out of the way. And what I mean by this is that if there's a line, I'm going to angle this way for it. If there's a line and we're going this way, if I'm going backwards, the person going forward is going to go through me, right? I actually want to get off the line. I'm creating this kind of space. If I stay here, I'm going to be in their way, okay? This is a big problem of what I see in Viennese Waltz, because what happens is, one, the person going forward isn't driving and trying to get around enough, but two, the person going backwards isn't really getting off the line to allow that person to get through, right? And so Viennese Waltz is very chivalrous, right, or any rotational thing, because it's one person goes and then you let the other person go, right? So as we're doing anything with rotation, such as a box or a Viennese cross, we're getting out of the way and letting the partner go through, right? But then what we want to do as we're going forward is drive through so that we have that momentum to get around the partner, okay? So when you're going forward, you're always going to be more aggressive in the action. And so this isn't as comfortable for followers as much in the beginning, because in the beginning we can normally take a more passive role. But when we're doing something like Viennese Waltz or Quick Step or really anything that gets more advanced, we both have to take ownership over the dancing and where we're going. The same for the leaders, right? Because you can be a very sensitive follow and understand what's going on with the leaders, then you can be a very good follower. But if the leader doesn't give you the same momentum or the same energy or the same connection, you're also not going to be able to follow, which is why it's a partnership, right? We call it a dance partnership, especially when we get to things like Viennese, because you both have to be aware of your role and the technique that goes along with it so that you can dance together, okay? So, again, we're going to go through more of the Viennese, right? We're down, right? So we have our heel on one, right? Again, that's going to be backward voice, heel, right? Ball the foot, slightly back, okay, so not to overdo the rotation, right? And I'm going to stay compressed. I'm not going to rise onto it. And then I'm going to cross my feet, again, making sure I get forward over that foot when I cross, okay? Now, as I go backwards, right, then I get off the line, I have my side step, and then I close my feet, okay? Now, except for the crossing, the same thing is true for our natural turns or our right turns, okay? So even when you're doing Viennese Waltz and you're practicing a natural box, which feels unnatural, a natural is just a right turning box, right? The best way to get used to a right turning box, just with anything, is to just practice slowly what a right turning box is, right? Which is the right foot going forward and then the left foot going back, right? And then you're going to use that to allow rotation to the right, okay? So, again, like I said before, no matter what turn you're doing, hi, Bubby, yeah. No matter what turn you're doing, whoever's going forward is driving through. Whoever's going backwards is getting out of the way. So when we're doing a right turning box, right, if I'm going forward with my right foot, I'm still driving through, and I'm the one in charge of creating the momentum, right? So I drive through, okay? When I'm going back, right, which is going to be back with my left foot, I'm still getting off the line. I'm still getting out of the way to allow my partner to go through, Okay, and this is important, right, especially in Viennese because it's so fast that we both have to be aware of it, or you're not going to make it around. And that's what happens when we kind of dance in circles. Okay, now in the concept of partnerships, a lot of people do pivots, or the action of pivots, and pivots is something that you can also practice at home. It's safer there. I want to go through pivots and spins. I want to talk about those because we have those a lot in smooth. A pivoting action, right, is a natural turn. We're going to call it a natural pivot. It's not a reverse pivot. So it rotates to the right. Now, when we do a pivot, we are both equally responsible for driving and rotation. Okay? Pivots are not easy. Right? They're in our bronze, but they're not easy. Okay? So, to do a pivot, right, I want to stay down and back, I drive over my foot, and then I rotate 180. Okay? That's the pivoting action. And then as I go backwards, right, I push onto the foot, and again, rotate 180. And what happens with the legs is we create this compass action where our legs don't swing out. We don't want them to ronde. Okay, so we don't want to take any extra time or momentum away from the pivot. We just want to make sure that we drive, rotate, right, and then we drive, rotate, and we're both responsible for creating the momentum to push and then creating that rotation, right? And the rotation, I think, is really what gets people, okay, because it takes a lot of effort to create that, right? Especially on carpet. You might get some carpet burn. I don't know. I am having fun while I'm dancing. Hello, everyone. Hello, Teresa. Yes. Okay, so pivots. Big thing, right? Pushing, right, off the foot, and then rotating. Well, that was the wrong foot, but it's fine, right? And then rotating all the way, and then pushing, and then rotating all the way, okay? Now, last thing I want to go through today, our turns, okay? Especially in smooth, because a lot of times, we get off balance in turns. And like I said before, when it comes to balance, right? Balance is one side of the body over one foot. Okay, so I'm left side over my left foot, or I'm right side over my right foot. Now, a lot of turns that we do, we have our a 3-step turns or a chaîné turn, which is just the together, right, where we go step, together, and then something else. And then we have our pivot turn, which is just what we just kind of did. We use that in smooth as well. But when we do our 3-step turn, I think that's it's a very important turn that we use in smooth a lot, and I really like it. That's where we're going forward. It's our left turn, right? And so we're driving forward onto the left foot. Yeah. Now, the hardest thing in our waltz or in our smooth is the second step, right? The first step is driving. That creates the momentum. We have our driving step. The second step is the hardest because what happens is that as we're doing that turn, we're creating momentum that's going down whatever line of dances that we're dancing. So what we have to do is not let our body go past our step on the second step, and that's normally what happens. Whether we're doing a 3-step turn or a chaîné turn, it doesn't really matter. What happens is that our body isn't centered over our foot. So as we're dancing, right, and we have our driving step, once we get over to the second step, and I'm going to try to be centered for this, we're here, what happens is that we haven't rotated, and we're going to start falling backwards because our body is going past the foot. So what we want to feel is that we actually hang back a little bit as we do our turn, right? So we have our step. I'm going to stay over towards this side as I do my turn, and then I can transfer my weight and then finish my turn on the third step, right? So it's the second step that oftentimes is the culprit of to why a turn feels off balance, right? So again, you can do this to the right as well, right? Taking your forward step, getting over the foot, staying over that foot, you can't see, and then getting onto the third foot and rotating, okay? Now, a chaîné turn, right? It's going to be easier to demonstrate what we're going to do on the action. We use it in rhythm a lot more because it doesn't travel as far. We want to make sure that we don't finish the turn too soon, Okay, so chaîné turn is a fancy way of saying step together, right? Of going step together side. And you can use different turns for different things. But what we want to do, same concept, right, is that if I'm turning and I'm going to turn to the left, step together, I'm going to leave my body over the right side. Now, what this allows for is sometimes either compression to create a nice shape, or compression or like hip action to create more of your rhythm action, right? But what we don't want to do is give everything away, right? Or we're going to again fall off. So anytime that we're doing a turn, we have to fight the momentum that we create at the beginning of the turn, okay? So again, if we're doing any kind of three-step turn, 1, 2, right? We want to hang back so that then we can decide where we're going on 3, okay? So, we talked about turns. Last thing, because we did turns and pivots, I want to talk a little bit about arms, okay? I didn't do this in rhythm, but rhythm for me is always just this, I think at the back of the hand, going out, and then I just twist and bring my hand back in, right? So that's my rhythm arm styling. It's always up with the back of the hand, twist, and then bring it in, right? Same thing, up with the back of the hand, twist, bring it in, right? So I'm always doing this in my rhythm. And it's always going out. In smooth, everything always, for me, is always coming in, right? It's always coming in and then down. So it's just inverted. It's always pretty much all the same thing. So when I'm doing smooth, if I'm going to shape or do some arm styling, again, it's the back, I still think of the back of the hand, but it comes kind of across the body, right? As opposed to outside of the body, right? So for me, rhythm, outside, bring it in, where smooth is inside, take it out, right? I mean, sometimes you're doing like contra check things, but that's very specific arm styling. But anyway, thank you all so much. It's our pleasure to be doing this. We love you. We miss you. Stay home. Stay safe. And just keep dancing, because that's what we're all here for. All right, thank you guys.